The day my son threw a cardboard box out the front door and told me to take my junk and go, I found something inside that changed everything, that I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start where this really began. I'm 63 years old. I worked 31 years as a claims adjuster for an insurance company outside of Columbus, Ohio. Not glamorous work. I sat at a desk, reviewed paperwork, made phone calls, drove a sensible car, brought my lunch from home almost every day. My wife, Loretta, God rest her, always said I was the most boring man she ever loved. I took that as a compliment. Boring meant stable. Boring meant the mortgage got paid, and the girls went to college and nobody went to bed hungry. Loretta passed 4 years ago. Breast cancer. We had 34 years together, and I would give every dollar I ever saved to have one more Tuesday morning with her, arguing over whether the coffee was too strong. That's grief for you. It turns the ordinary into the thing you miss most. After she passed, I sold our house in the suburbs. Too many rooms, too many doorways where I kept expecting to see her. I bought a condo in a quieter part of the city. 2 bedrooms, ground floor, small patio where I grew tomatoes in the summer. I had my routine. Church on Sundays, coffee with my neighbor Ted on Tuesday mornings. I coached a youth chess club at the rec center on Thursday evenings. It wasn't exciting, but it was mine and it was peaceful, and for a man who had just lost the center of his world, peaceful was enough. My son moved back to Columbus about 2.5 years ago. He's 34. I won't pretend his homecoming wasn't complicated. He'd been living in Phoenix with his wife, Renee. They'd gotten married out there 4 years earlier in a small ceremony I drove out for. She seemed fine at the wedding. Quiet. Smiled when she was supposed to. I didn't know her well enough to have an opinion, and I told myself that was okay. She was his choice. He was happy. When he called to say they were moving back, he told me it was for a fresh start. He'd left his job. She was between things. They needed to reset. I asked if everything was okay with the marriage. He said yes, everything was fine. They just needed a change of scenery. I believed him. That was my first mistake, not the last. I offered them my spare bedroom while they got back on their feet. 1 month, maybe 2. That's what I was thinking. I set up the room, cleared out the closet, bought a new set of towels. I thought I was being a good father. The first few weeks were fine. My son helped me fix the leaky faucet in the kitchen. We watched football together on Saturdays. His wife cooked dinner twice, and it was good. She made a chicken dish with peppers that I genuinely enjoyed. I thought maybe I'd been too quick to judge. Maybe this would be good for all of us. But then things started to shift. Small things at first. The kind of things you notice but talk yourself out of naming. His wife started taking calls in the bedroom with the door closed, long calls. She'd come out 40 minutes later and say it was her mother, or a friend from Phoenix, or a job recruiter. My son started sleeping in past 10. He'd been a morning person his whole life, up at 6, dressed by 7. Now I was making coffee alone every morning while they slept. I told myself they were recovering. Stress does that to people. Then she started rearranging my kitchen. I came home from chess club one Thursday to find she'd moved everything. The mugs were in a different cabinet. The spice rack was on a different shelf. My mother's cast iron skillet, the one Loretta used every Sunday morning for as long as I can remember, was in a box in the hallway. When I asked about it, Renee said it was too heavy and took up too much space. I put it back in the cabinet without another word. But something settled in my stomach that night that didn't go away. I started noticing other things. Food disappearing, not in a normal living with other people way, but in a way where I'd buy groceries and 3 days later there'd be nothing left. I was spending nearly twice what I used to on food. When I mentioned it gently to my son, he laughed and said, "Come on, Dad, it's just groceries." I let it go. Then came the car. My son's car needed transmission work. He asked if he could borrow mine for a few weeks while he saved up for the repair. I said yes. 3 months later, I was still taking the bus to my doctor's appointments. Every time I brought it up, there was a reason. The repair shop wanted more than they quoted. The part was back-ordered. They were looking at other options. I started to feel like a guest in my own home. And then one Sunday afternoon, I came back from church to find Renee sitting at my kitchen table with a man I had never seen before. She didn't stand up. She didn't introduce him. She said, "Oh, we're just going over some stuff," and turned back to the papers spread between them. I stood in my own kitchen doorway for a moment, trying to understand what I was looking at. Then I went to my room, sat on the edge of my bed, and stared at the floor. That night, I heard them arguing through the wall. I couldn't make out all of it, but I heard my name more than once. I heard the word deed. I heard Renee say something about timelines. I heard my son go quiet in a way that worried me more than if he'd argued back. The next morning, I called my daughter. She lives in Atlanta. She's a school administrator, married with 2 kids, busy in the way that good people with full lives are busy. I hadn't wanted to worry her, but something told me it was time. She listened without interrupting, which is how I knew she was taking it seriously. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Dad, I'm coming up." She arrived 4 days later on a Friday evening. My son and Renee were home when she got there. The greeting was polite in the way that means nothing. Smiles that didn't reach anyone's eyes. My daughter helped me make dinner, and we all sat down together, like everything was fine. I watched her watching them all through the meal. She didn't miss a thing. She stayed through the weekend. I noticed she took photos of things around the condo when she thought no one was looking. Papers on the counter, some documents my son had left near the coffee table. I didn't ask her about it. I trusted her. Sunday evening, after my son and Renee had gone to bed, she sat across from me at the kitchen table and lowered her voice. "Dad," she said, "did you sign anything recently? Anything for a loan or a home equity line or a property management arrangement?" I told her no, absolutely not. I'd never signed anything like that. She pulled out her phone and showed me a document. I had to put on my reading glasses. When I read what it said, my hands went cold. It was a property management agreement with my son's name on it and my signature at the bottom, except I had never signed that paper. I had never seen that paper. I said that to her, slowly and clearly. "I never signed this." She nodded. She said she'd suspected as much. She said she'd been talking to a friend of hers, an attorney, and that they needed to move carefully and not tip anyone off. She said I should act normal, keep my routine, let her handle the next steps. I asked her what she thought they were planning. She looked at me across the table with the same eyes she had when she was 8 years old, and trying not to cry over something that scared her. "I think they were going to try to put a lien on this property," she said, "and possibly force a sale." I didn't sleep that night. For the next 3 weeks, I did what she told me. I went to church, I coached chess club, I said good morning to my son and his wife and asked how their day was. I watched Renee take more calls in the bedroom. I watched my son avoid meeting my eyes at the dinner table. I kept my voice even and my face calm and felt something breaking apart inside me that I couldn't name. Then one Tuesday morning, I came home from coffee with Ted to find my belongings on the walkway outside my front door. Not everything, just what they considered mine. 2 suitcases, a box of books, my chess set, a bag with some kitchen items. They'd left the cast iron skillet inside. The door was locked. My key still worked, so I opened it. Renee was standing in the living room with her arms crossed. My son was behind her, not quite meeting my eyes. "We think it's time for you to find your own place," Renee said. "We need the space." I looked at my son. He looked at the floor. "This is my condo," I said. My voice was very steady. I was surprised by how steady it was. "The management agreement gives us control of the property," she said. "That agreement is fraudulent," I said. "And my daughter has already spoken with an attorney." Something shifted in Renee's face. For just a second, the composure cracked. My son finally looked up. He opened his mouth, closed it again. "I want you both to leave," I said. "Today." Renee laughed a short, sharp sound. "You can't." "I can," I said, "and I will. I'll be calling the police if necessary." She picked up her purse. She said something I won't repeat. My son picked up his jacket and walked past me without a word. At the door, he stopped. He didn't turn around. "I'm sorry, Dad," he said, very quietly. Then they left. I sat down on my couch in the silence of my own home and stared at the wall for a long time. The box he had thrown onto the walkway, the one with my books and some papers I kept in the office, had come open when it hit the ground. I'd stacked everything back inside before I came in. But now I realized I hadn't checked all of it. I went back outside to get it, and when I picked it up, something slid out from between two books and landed on the walkway near my shoe. It was an envelope, sealed, my name written on the front in handwriting I didn't recognize. I stood out there on the walkway in the gray Tuesday morning air and opened it. Inside was a folded piece of paper and a smaller envelope. I read the note first. It said, "Dad, I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. But I couldn't let this happen. I've been working with her since January. The account details are inside. I set it up under a joint name so she couldn't touch it without both of us. I love you. Please don't call me for a while. I need to figure out what I am." It was signed with my son's name. I sat down on the front step. My legs just gave out. I opened the smaller envelope. It was a bank statement, a savings account I had never seen before. The balance was $480,000. My son's name and mine both listed as account holders. Before I could understand what I was looking at, my phone rang. My daughter. "Dad," she said, "are you okay? I've been trying to reach you." I told her what I had found. She was quiet for a long moment. "He called me 2 weeks ago," she finally said. "He said he'd been skimming money from his wife's accounts for 8 months. She'd been moving funds around, money she convinced him to take from you through the management agreement, some of it from a business she'd been running that wasn't entirely legal. He didn't tell me the full amount. He said he was putting it somewhere safe. I didn't know what he meant until now." I sat on the front step and held the phone and tried to breathe. "What happens now?" I asked. "The attorney filed a complaint with the county last Thursday," she said. "The forged signature on that management agreement. That's a felony, and if what he told me about her business is accurate, there's more than that. She's going to have a very bad year." I looked at the bank statement in my hand. Nearly $500,000. Saved one deposit at a time by a man who had made a terrible choice, and then, somewhere inside himself, found the part of him that knew what was right. He was right that I didn't call him for a while. I waited 6 weeks. When I did, he picked up on the second ring. He sounded smaller than I remembered, the way people do when something big has finally left them. He was staying with a cousin in Cincinnati. He'd gotten a job at a hardware store. He said it was a start. I asked him why he married her. He thought for a long time before he answered. "I thought she was strong," he said. "Turns out she was just hard. I didn't know the difference yet." Renee was charged with document fraud, forgery, and wire fraud connected to her other activities. Her attorney negotiated a plea. She received a 4-year sentence. I was told restitution was part of the agreement, though what that ultimately means I don't yet know. The $480,000 stayed in that account for 3 months while the attorney sorted through what was legitimate and what wasn't. When it was cleared, I transferred my share, the portion that had come from what should have been mine, into my own accounts. My son said the rest was mine too. I told him to keep it. He was going to need it. My daughter flew up to Columbus the week after everything was resolved. We sat on my patio in the late October cold and drank coffee and didn't say much. At some point, she reached over and squeezed my hand and didn't let go. I still coach chess on Thursday evenings. I still have coffee with Ted on Tuesdays. I got my car back, needed new brakes and a thorough cleaning, but it runs fine. The cast iron skillet is back in its cabinet where it belongs. My son came to Columbus for Christmas. We sat at the kitchen table, and I made the chicken dish, Loretta's version, the one with thyme and a little lemon, and we ate without talking about any of it. Sometimes that's the most honest conversation two people can have. I don't know what I believe about second chances. I'm still working that out. What I know is this: the people who love you don't always show it in ways that are easy to see. Sometimes love looks like a sealed envelope left between two books. Sometimes it looks like a phone call at exactly the right moment. Sometimes it looks like a woman who flies up from Atlanta on 4 days' notice and sits at your kitchen table with a quiet face and a phone full of photographs and says, "I've been paying attention." That's the thing nobody tells you about getting older. You think you're the one doing the protecting. You don't realize until the moment arrives that you've been the one being protected all along.